Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake. I understand that this debate is about trade-offs, and I understand that over the past 50 years, sure, the environment has been harmed, but contrary to popular belief, at the same breath, things have also gotten better. Because I understand that we can't have our cake and eat it too, and if we could, then nothing that humanity does would harm the environment. Things have gotten better with the advent and proliferation of things like electric vehicles from China and the shift to cleaner and the most clean form of energy, which is nuclear power, and other forms of renewables, which also have a huge outlay and initial harm to the environment when you're able to literally build and create all of these windmills, dams, and other forms to be able to harness the elements. This is only made possible when we're able to make a trade-off and see things in a timeline in terms of being able to understand that long-term sustainability comes at the price of some sort of short-term harm or effect. That is to say that before, we actually harmed the ozone layer with CFCs, etc. Oh my gosh, Al Gore, fear-mongering about the world, we all thought we were fucked. But we've actually been able to heal the ozone layer, of which was made possible by the continued development of environmental technology, and at the same time being able to nationalize and industrialize industries so that countries, not just rich developed nations, can actually have a means, motivation, capacity, and incentive to actually give a shit about the environment. A couple of features of our model which we think are important. The first is, this is a value judgment debate, and it's not about what's more important, the environment or the economy. That's the whole chicken and the egg problem that we rather not necessarily get into. But quite specifically, this debate is about the decision-making process, about whether or not the scientific experts and community themselves should have last say. And we think that in such an important kind of huge decision that affects the world, no one should have a veto power, and especially the scientific community should not have that. Why is that the case? Second point of framing. We have to understand that this isn't a debate about oh, we're gonna have a big policy to fuck over the environment for absolutely no good reason. Meaning, oftentimes, the biggest environmental harms often come with a very big perceived and studied economic or developmental upside. Things like the Three Gorges Dam in China, things like the scores of nuclear power plants and waste treatment facilities all over North America and Europe. Meaning, it's not a simple debate about, oh, we're gonna allow the world to destroy the environment. It happens in a particular context. That particular context leads me to a third point about the harms of veto power, specifically coming from the scientific community. Because these very locked-in, smart, PhD individuals often see things primarily from their own reference point. They're not politicians who are elected by people. They're not economists who can see the world. And these particular individuals have a sense of possible confirmation bias in being able to be locked in only to what they know and understand. Meaning, if they have a veto power, there's no check and balance to be able to ensure that they do things properly, because there's a likelihood that they might do it willy-nilly because they're afraid, because they've already forwarded this particular doomsday narrative of the worst harms that can happen. But let's be charitable. This is me engaging with the best case of Gov. Even if that's not the case, and even if that these individuals can have discords, etc., they can talk about it, when was the last time you actually had a group of experts agree on anything? Meaning, the discourse that you have in status quo right now is valuable, but you no longer get that on side Gov at the point in which these people have no incentive to explain their decision or be able to forward logic and discussion at the point in which they can say no, which particularly makes it harmful for those people. Sure, I'll take closing if you have anything.
So explain this to me in the first place. Don't you think that people who in the first place have the capability and the incentive to bring in the right policy measures in the first place should have the right to this, given that the government has biases of corporate owners and so on and so forth?
Yeah, that's already status quo, but I'm saying that you run the risk of those things not happening at the point in which people can say no. This relates to my POI to the first speaker on OG, wherein I said wait, what the fuck happens if majority of politicians and people want this to happen, like a nuclear power, but hey, oh no, they say no. So we think that you cannot co-opt the benefits of discourse and making that out, but at the same time giving them the veto power. I'll take another one from opening government. Yeah. OG.
So, extending your analogy to, let's just say, another administrative body, let's just say again the central bank over here. So, do you think that extending this analogy, are the people working in the central bank or any administrative service are also useless, considering they are also experts in their field?
I think that's missing the point, because my simple answer to your POI is that the central bank doesn't have veto power over economic policy. They have to work together with the fiscal side. Case in point why we had motion 3, the idea about them having more power. Moving on to my impacts, right? I think the first impact is to be able to understand what exactly we want in status quo and how it's better. And we think that we're able to co-opt government case in terms of being able to say, we don't want to run the risk of a single point of failure or the single point of an individual being able to have so much power. That can only happen when no one has particular veto power, especially those people who are most locked in. The second is, most importantly, the opportunity cost of the veto power in terms of giving them this particular capacity. Meaning, it's likely to be anti-economic development and anti-poor, especially since these things, as I characterized in my pre-oration, often are mutually exclusive. In order to be able to build industries and farms, to be able to make sure your people don't starve, or to be able to make sure that people have the energy to be able to heat their home, you often have a huge short-term harm to the environment at the same time that allows you to reap mid to long-term economic benefits that ironically allow you to be able to invest and double down on things like green tech. And that can only happen when you don't allow these particular individuals who from the get-go are skeptical, from the get-go are scared, and from the get-go have fear-mongered themselves, the politicians and the public, the very incentive of those things who are likely to say no. Ladies and gentlemen, for all of these reasons, it's too much power, it's too much risk. We have to earn caution, stick to status quo. We are very proud to stand on side opposition.